The cold Alaskan wind whipped through Lucy Bennett's hair as she adjusted her binoculars. The morning sun barely peeked over the snow-capped mountains, casting long shadows across the valley. As a wildlife researcher, she had spent countless hours observing wolf packs in their natural habitat, but something about this morning felt different. Through her binoculars, she spotted the Silvercrest pack moving through the valley below. The pack was known in the area, having lived here for generations. Lucy counted the wolves. 1, 2, 3, 12 in total. But then she noticed something odd. At the edge of her view, partially hidden behind a cluster of pine trees, a lone wolf stumbled along. Lucy frowned. The wolf's movements were unnatural, hesitant. It kept bumping into trees and rocks, behavior she had never seen before in a healthy wolf. She quickly packed her gear and moved closer, careful to maintain a safe distance. The lone wolf was smaller than the others, with a distinctive gray coat that had patches of white around its neck. As Lucy observed it more closely, her heart sank. The wolf's eyes were clouded over. It was blind. Poor thing, she whispered to herself, documenting her observations in her field notebook. The wolf's behavior suggested it had been recently separated from the pack, probably due to its disability. In a harsh wilderness, a blind wolf would be seen as a liability. Lucy spent the next few hours tracking both the main pack and the lone wolf. The pack moved efficiently through the landscape, hunting and marking their territory. The blind wolf, however, seemed to be following a completely different pattern. Despite its disability, it moved with a strange purpose, always returning to a specific area near the base of Mount Blackridge. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Lucy decided to report her findings to the local ranger station. The blind wolf's behavior was too unusual to ignore, and she worried it might not survive long on its own. The ranger station was a modest wooden building surrounded by tall pines. Inside, she found Ranger Kevin Wright at his desk, reviewing trail maps. Kevin was new to the area, having transferred from Wyoming just 6 months ago, but he had already earned a reputation for his dedication to wildlife protection. A blind wolf? Kevin leaned forward in his chair, interested. That's not something you see every day. Lucy spread out her field notes on his desk. What's even stranger is its behavior. Most injured or disabled wolves either die quickly or find their way to easier hunting grounds near human settlements. This one keeps circling the same area of the mountain, almost like it's searching for something. Kevin studied the marked locations on Lucy's map. This area here, he pointed to where the wolf had been circling. It's not usually part of the Silvercrest pack's territory. In fact, we don't get many animals through there at all. Exactly, Lucy said. It's almost like it's trying to show us something. Kevin stood up and grabbed his jacket. Well, let's go take a look. If nothing else, we should make sure it's not suffering. They took Kevin's ranger vehicle up the rough mountain road as far as they could, then continued on foot. The autumn air was crisp, and their breath came out in white puffs as they climbed higher. Lucy led the way, following the tracks she had documented earlier. After about an hour of hiking, they heard a low whine. The blind wolf was there, sitting near a rocky outcrop. It didn't run when it heard them approach. Instead, it turned its head toward them and let out another whine. This is bizarre, Kevin whispered. It's almost like it was waiting for us. Lucy slowly took out her camera and began taking photos. The wolf's clouded eyes seemed to look right through them, but its ears were perfectly focused in their direction. Despite its condition, the animal appeared to be in decent health. Its coat was full, and while it was thinner than it should be, it wasn't starving. The wolf stood up and took a few steps away from them, then stopped and turned its head back in their direction. When they didn't move, it repeated the action. I think it wants us to follow it, Lucy said, barely believing her own words. Kevin checked his watch. We've got about 4 hours of daylight left. Want to see where this goes? Lucy nodded, and they began following the wolf at a safe distance. The animal led them on a winding path through the rocks, occasionally stopping to make sure they were still behind it. Its movements became more confident as they went, suggesting it knew this route well. After about 30 minutes, they reached a small plateau. The wolf sat down near the edge and began howling. Not the normal howl of a wolf calling to its pack, but a different sort of sound, almost like it was trying to point out something with its voice. Lucy and Kevin approached carefully. Below the plateau was a steep drop, but something caught Lucy's eye. There was a strange shimmer in the air, like heat waves rising from hot pavement, except it was autumn in Alaska and the ground was cold. "Kevin, are you seeing this?" Lucy pulled out her phone and started recording. "Yeah, what is that?" He took out his rangefinder to get a better look. "There's something else too. My equipment's acting weird. The readings keep jumping around." The wolf howled again, this time louder and more insistent. As the sound echoed off the rocks, the shimmer in the air seemed to ripple and expand. Lucy's phone suddenly shut down, despite having nearly a full charge. Kevin's rangefinder went dark too. The wolf, however, appeared increasingly excited, pawing at the ground and making short, sharp barks. "We should document everything we can," Lucy said, pulling out her notebook since her phone wasn't working. "Whatever this is, it's definitely not natural." Kevin agreed. "I'll call it in when we get back to the station. We need more people up here to investigate this." As they made their notes, the wolf settled down nearby, seemingly content now that it had shown them what it wanted them to see. Lucy couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger. They spent another hour at the site, marking the location and taking detailed notes about the strange phenomena they had observed. The wolf stayed with them the whole time, occasionally getting up to pace around the area before settling back down. As the sun began to set, they knew they had to head back. To their surprise, the wolf followed them all the way to their vehicle, maintaining a respectful distance but clearly unwilling to let them out of its sight. "We'll be back tomorrow," Lucy told the wolf, feeling slightly foolish for talking to it like it could understand. But the animal's behavior was so unusual that it seemed almost human in its intelligence. Back at the ranger station, Kevin made several calls while Lucy organized their notes and observations. They agreed to keep the discovery quiet until they could bring in more experts to examine the site. That night, as Lucy drove home to her cabin, her mind raced with possibilities. In all her years of studying wolves, she had never encountered anything like this. The blind wolf's behavior, the strange atmospheric disturbance, the equipment failures, it all pointed to something beyond her understanding of natural phenomena. She fell asleep that night to the distant sound of wolf howls, knowing that tomorrow would bring new discoveries. What she didn't know was that the blind wolf had set in motion a chain of events that would change not just her life, but the entire world's understanding of their place in the universe. The blind wolf, meanwhile, kept its silent vigil near the shimmer in the air, waiting patiently for the humans to return. Its clouded eyes might not have been able to see the physical world, but it could sense something far more important, something that had chosen it for a purpose beyond anything its former pack could have imagined. The next morning arrived with a sense of urgency. Lucy woke up before dawn, her mind still racing with thoughts of yesterday's discovery. As she drove to the ranger station, the sunrise painted the Alaskan sky in shades of pink and orange. She found Kevin already there, talking with a man she didn't recognize. "Lucy, meet Dr. Peter Collins," Kevin said as she walked in. "He's a government scientist who specializes in electromagnetic phenomena. I reached out to some contacts last night, and they sent him immediately." Peter was a tall man with graying hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He carried a large case filled with scientific equipment. "Kevin told me about what you discovered," he said, shaking Lucy's hand. "I brought some specialized equipment to measure whatever's causing those disturbances." They loaded their gear into 2 vehicles and headed up the mountain. Lucy kept watching for the blind wolf, hoping it would appear again. Sure enough, as they approached the area from yesterday, they spotted it waiting near the trail, as if it knew they would return. "Remarkable," Peter said, watching the wolf through his binoculars. "Its behavior is nothing like what we typically see in wild wolves." He pulled out a strange-looking device from his case. "Even from here, I'm getting unusual readings." The wolf led them back to the plateau, moving with the same purposeful stride as before. This time, the shimmer in the air seemed stronger, more visible. Peter's equipment came alive with beeping sounds and flashing lights. "This is extraordinary," he said, adjusting various dials. "I'm detecting electromagnetic frequencies that shouldn't exist naturally. They're organized, almost like a pattern." Lucy watched as the blind wolf paced around the area, its ears twitching at every beat from Peter's machines. "The wolf seems to react to the sounds your equipment is making." Peter nodded, his eyes glued to his readings. "These signals, they're not random. They're structured, like some kind of code." He pulled out more devices, setting them up in a circle around the area. The energy signature is unlike anything I've ever seen before." The wolf suddenly sat down and began howling again. This time, Peter's equipment responded with a series of rapid beeps and whistles. The scientist's eyes widened as he watched his displays. "When the wolf howls, the signal strength increases," he explained, his voice filled with excitement. "It's as if its howls are interfacing with whatever's causing these readings." Kevin, who had been setting up safety markers around the area, joined them. "Could this be some kind of military installation we don't know about?" Peter shook his head. "No, this technology is far beyond anything I've ever encountered in my work with the government. The energy patterns are too complex, too alien." As if responding to his words, the wolf began pawing at the ground near the center of the shimmer. The air rippled more intensely, and Peter's equipment started giving off new alerts. "The frequencies are changing," Peter announced, frantically taking notes. "They're shifting into a different pattern. And look at this." He held up a thermal imaging camera, showing them the screen. "There's a heat signature about 20 feet below us, in a perfect geometric pattern." Lucy moved closer to the wolf, which had stopped pawing at the ground and was now sitting quietly. She noticed something she hadn't seen before: tiny flecks of silver in its clouded eyes that seemed to catch the light strangely. "Dr. Collins," she called out, "could you take a look at the wolf's eyes with your equipment?" Peter carefully approached the wolf, which remained unusually calm. He held up several devices, including one that emitted a soft blue light. "This is incredible. The cloudiness in its eyes, it's not from natural causes. The tissue has been altered at a molecular level. Whatever did this, it's connected to the energy signals we're detecting." The afternoon wore on as they collected more data. Peter's equipment revealed a complex network of energy patterns flowing beneath the ground, all converging at this spot. The blind wolf stayed with them, occasionally moving to different positions around the area, each time triggering new changes in the readings. As the sun began to set, they made a startling discovery. Peter had set up a ground-penetrating radar, and its images revealed something massive buried deep in the mountain. "Look at these formations," Peter said, pointing to his screen. "These aren't natural cave systems. They're corridors, chambers. This is a structure, and it's huge." Lucy looked at the blind wolf, which sat calmly watching them with its sightless eyes. "It's been trying to show us this all along. But how did it know?" Peter packed up some of his equipment, but left several monitoring devices behind. "I need to make some calls. Whatever we found here, it's going to require a full research team." That night, they set up a base camp near the site. The blind wolf remained nearby, like a guardian watching over the area. Lucy sat by the campfire, reviewing the day's notes while Kevin and Peter discussed plans for a larger expedition. "The wolf's blindness," Peter said thoughtfully, "I believe it was deliberately caused by exposure to the energy field. But instead of harming it, the exposure changed it, enhanced it, somehow." Lucy remembered how confidently the wolf had led them here, despite its inability to see. "It's using other senses to navigate, maybe ones we don't even understand." "Tomorrow, I'll have more specialized equipment arriving," Peter told them. "We need to figure out how to safely access whatever's buried in that mountain. And I think our friend here," he gestured to the wolf, "is the key to doing that." As if understanding his words, the wolf lifted its head and let out a soft howl. The air shimmered more intensely for a moment, and all their equipment temporarily went dark before coming back online. "One thing's for certain," Kevin said, stoking the campfire. "Whatever's down there, it chose its guardian well. That wolf didn't just stumble onto this place, it was selected." Lucy watched the wolf as it lay near the edge of their camp, its clouded eyes reflecting the firelight. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of a discovery that would change everything they thought they knew about their world. The night grew colder, and the stars emerged in the clear Alaskan sky. The blind wolf's occasional howls echoed through the mountains, but they no longer sounded like calls of loneliness. Instead, they seemed like signals, communications with something they were only beginning to understand. None of them slept much that night, their minds too full of questions and possibilities. What lay beneath the mountain? Why had it chosen a blind wolf as its guardian? And most importantly, what would they find when they finally found a way inside? The answers would come soon enough, but for now, they watched and waited, gathering data and preparing for what would surely be the most important expedition of their lives. The blind wolf, rejected by its pack, but chosen for something far greater, had led them to the threshold of a discovery that would rewrite history. As the first light of dawn approached, Peter's equipment detected a new pattern in the energy readings, stronger than anything they'd seen before. The blind wolf stood up, alert and focused, as if it knew that soon, very soon, everything would change. 3 days had passed since Peter Collins first arrived at the site. The small base camp had grown into a proper research station, with generators humming and specialized equipment scattered around the area. The blind wolf remained a constant presence, watching over everything with its clouded eyes. Early that morning, Peter's ground-penetrating radar had finally revealed what they'd been searching for, an entrance hidden beneath years of rock and soil. A team of geologists worked carefully to clear the area, guided by the wolf's peculiar behavior. Whenever they got close to something important, the wolf would pace and whine until they paid attention. "Look at this," one of the geologists called out, brushing away dirt from a metallic surface. The material was unlike anything they'd seen before, a smooth, dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Lucy stood nearby, taking photographs and notes. The blind wolf sat at her feet, its ears twitching at every sound of discovery. Peter approached with his measuring devices, which began emitting a series of rapid beeps. "The energy readings are off the charts," he said, adjusting his equipment. "Whatever this entrance is made of, it's the source of the electromagnetic disturbances we've been tracking." As they cleared more of the entrance, they found what appeared to be a door, a perfect circle of the strange metal, about 8 feet in diameter. There were no visible handles or control panels, just smooth, unmarked surface. The wolf suddenly stood up and walked to the door. As it approached, the metal began to hum softly, and lines of soft blue light appeared, spreading across the surface like cracks in ice. "It's responding to the wolf," Lucy whispered, her voice filled with awe. "Just like everything else here." Peter's instruments were going wild. "The energy signature the wolf gives off, it's matching the frequency of the door. Some kind of recognition system, maybe?" The wolf placed one paw on the surface of the door. With a low rumble, the metal began to split apart, spinning and retracting into the surrounding frame. Cool air rushed out from the darkness beyond. Kevin switched on his powerful flashlight and pointed it into the opening. The beam revealed a sloping tunnel, its walls made of the same dark metal as the door. The surface was covered in subtle patterns that seemed to shift and move in the light. "We need to document everything," Peter said, setting up more equipment. "And we need to be careful. We have no idea what we're dealing with here." They prepared for their first venture inside. Lucy, Kevin, and Peter would go, along with 2 of Peter's research assistants. They wore protective suits with built-in sensors and carried enough equipment to study whatever they might find. The blind wolf led the way, moving with complete confidence through the darkness. Its paws made soft clicking sounds on the metal floor, echoing in the tunnel. Lucy noticed that the wolf was using the echoes to navigate, a form of natural echolocation. "The walls are warm," Kevin said, running a gloved hand along the surface. "And look, they're reacting to our presence." Where his hand touched, faint lines of light followed, like ripples in water. They descended deeper into the mountain. The tunnel opened into a large chamber that took their breath away. The ceiling rose at least 30 feet high, and the walls were covered in what looked like dormant control panels. In the center of the room stood a circular platform, raised slightly above the floor. The wolf walked directly to the platform and sat down. As soon as it did, the entire chamber came alive. Lights flickered on, and holographic displays appeared in the air around them. Strange symbols floated and spun, casting colored shadows across their faces. "This is incredible," Peter breathed, his instruments recording everything. "This facility isn't just old, it's ancient, but the technology, it's far beyond anything we have today." Lucy watched as the blind wolf moved around the platform, triggering different responses from the facility. It knows exactly what it's doing. It's been trained for this. One of the holographic displays showed what appeared to be a map, not of the facility, but of something much larger. Points of light were connected by lines of energy, spreading across what looked like the entire planet. "A network," Peter said, studying the display. "This facility is part of something bigger. Much bigger." The wolf led them through more chambers, each one filled with different types of technology. In one room, they found what looked like medical equipment. In another, There were tanks filled with a glowing liquid that pulsed with inner light. Kevin pointed his light at something in the corner of one chamber. "Look at this. There are more of those symbols here, but they're different. They look like warnings." Peter took readings of the symbols. "The energy patterns are similar to the ones we detected in the wolf's eyes. Whatever changed it, whatever gave it its purpose, it happened here." They spent hours exploring the facility, documenting everything they found. The wolf never left their side, occasionally steering them away from certain areas and guiding them toward others. It was clear that the animal wasn't just leading them randomly. It was following a plan. In the largest chamber they discovered, they found what appeared to be a control center. Curved panels rose from the floor in a semicircle, covered in more of the shifting symbols. The blind wolf sat in the center of the room and howled. The sound echoed off the walls, but instead of fading, it seemed to be absorbed by the technology around them. The panels lit up one by one, and a three-dimensional image appeared above them, a message, written in those same strange symbols. "We need to find a way to translate this," Peter said, recording the symbols. "Whatever this place is, whatever its purpose might be, the answers are in these messages." Lucy knelt beside the wolf, which seemed tired but satisfied. "You've been waiting for us, haven't you? Waiting to show us all of this." The wolf turned its clouded eyes toward her and made a soft whining sound. In the strange light of the alien facility, Lucy could see those silver flecks in its eyes more clearly now. They weren't just reflecting light, they were producing it. As they prepared to return to the surface, Kevin noticed something else. "The air down here, it's perfectly clean and fresh. This place has its own life support system, and it's still working after who knows how long." Peter nodded, checking his instruments one last time. "This facility isn't just preserved, it's active. And I have a feeling we've only scratched the surface of what it can do." They made their way back to the entrance, their minds struggling to process everything they'd seen. The blind wolf walked ahead of them, its steps sure and purposeful, leading them back to the world above. One thing was certain: their discovery would change everything. But as they emerged into the fading daylight, they'd all sensed that they were merely at the beginning of a much larger journey. The facility's purpose, its connection to the wolf, and its meaning for humanity were still mysteries waiting to be solved. The blind wolf sat at the entrance, watching with its sightless eyes as they began to set up more equipment. Whatever secrets lay hidden in the depths of the mountain, this remarkable animal would continue to be their guide, leading them deeper into a mystery that spanned beyond their wildest imaginations. 1 week after discovering the underground facility, the research base had transformed into a hub of intense activity. Scientists from various fields worked around the clock, studying the alien technology and trying to decode its messages. The blind wolf remained their constant companion, its presence now vital to their understanding of the facility. That morning, Lucy sat in the newly established control room, reviewing footage from their explorations. The wolf lay at her feet, its ears perking up at every sound from the alien equipment. Peter burst into the room, clutching a tablet with excitement. "We've done it," he announced, his eyes bright with discovery. "We've finally cracked part of their language system. The symbols aren't just writing, they're living code. They change based on who's reading them." Lucy leaned forward, interested. "Is that why they look different to each person who sees them?" "Exactly," Peter said, setting up his tablet to display his findings. "And here's the most amazing part. The wolf's altered eyes can read them perfectly. That's why it was changed. It's not just a guardian, it's a living key to their system." The wolf stood up at these words, walking to the center of the room. As it had done many times before, it let out a howl. This time, though, something different happened. The facility's systems responded with a series of musical tones, creating a harmony with the wolf's cry. Suddenly, all the displays in the room activated at once. A holographic image appeared, showing what looked like a map of the solar system. But it wasn't a normal map. It showed paths and patterns they had never seen before. "It's some kind of warning system," Peter explained, his equipment recording everything. "Look at these patterns, they're tracking something. Something that's coming." Lucy watched as the hologram zoomed in on Earth, showing a network of facilities similar to the one they were in, spread across the planet. Their location blinked with a bright light, while others appeared dormant. "How many of these facilities are there?" she asked, counting the points of light. "We've identified 12 major sites," Peter replied. "But this is the only one that's active. The others are waiting to be awakened." The blind wolf moved through the hologram, its body passing through the lights, and each time it did, the images shifted to show new information. It was like the wolf was physically interacting with the data, using its body to navigate through the alien interface. Kevin rushed into the room. "You need to see this," he said breathlessly. "We found something in the lower chamber. Something big." They followed him down to a level they hadn't fully explored yet. The wolf trotted ahead of them, leading the way with confident steps. They entered a vast circular room they hadn't noticed before, and in its center stood what appeared to be a massive crystalline structure. "It activated about 10 minutes ago," Kevin explained. "Just started humming and glowing." The crystal pulsed with inner light, and as they watched, images began to form within it. They saw stars, planets, and what appeared to be ships, but not human ships. They were watching the history of Earth from the perspective of its ancient guardians. The wolf sat before the crystal, and its clouded eyes reflected the shifting lights. A voice filled the room, not human, not animal, but something in between. It spoke in a language they couldn't understand, but somehow they grasped its meaning. "It's a message from the builders," Peter whispered, his instruments recording everything. "They left this here. They left all of this here as a defense network. They knew something was coming, something they had faced before." Lucy watched as the images showed a threat approaching Earth, something vast and dark that consumed everything in its path. "When?" she asked, her voice barely audible. The crystal's images shifted to show a timeline. Peter's face went pale as he calculated the numbers. "Soon," he said, "within months." The wolf stood and walked to another panel, activating it with its presence. New holograms appeared, showing what looked like defense systems, incredible technologies that had been sleeping beneath Earth's surface for millennia. This is why the wolf was chosen, Lucy realized. Why it was changed. It's not just leading us to this knowledge, it's teaching us how to use it. The crystal pulsed again, and more systems throughout the facility came online. Panels that had been dark for centuries lit up, revealing their purposes. This wasn't just a monitoring station. It was a command center for Earth's defense. "Look at this," Peter said, studying the new data. "The wolf's genetic modifications, they're just the beginning. The builders left us everything we need to prepare, but they knew we had to be ready to understand it. They chose a wolf because wolves work together," Lucy finished. "They're pack animals. They understand unity and cooperation. The builders wanted us to learn the same lesson." The blind wolf moved between them, touching each person gently with its nose. As it did, the crystal responded, creating connections between the humans and the facility's systems. They could feel the technology responding to them now, accepting them as its new guardians. Kevin checked his watch. "We need to contact the other research teams. If there are 11 other facilities out there, we need to find them, fast." The wolf sat in the center of the room, and all the systems pulsed in harmony with its presence. Through its sacrifice, its blindness, its rejection from its pack, it had become something more. It had become a bridge between two worlds, between Earth's past and its future. Lucy knelt beside the wolf, placing a gentle hand on its fur. "You've been waiting so long for this moment," she said softly. "Carrying this burden alone." The crystal's light grew brighter, and new information began flooding their screens and displays. The wolf had unlocked something deep within the facility's core, the full knowledge of what was coming and how humanity needed to prepare. Peter started organizing the data. "We have work to do," he said, his voice firm with purpose. "The builders left us a fighting chance, but we need to understand everything they left us, and we need to do it quickly." The blind wolf stood, ready to continue its mission. It had brought them this far, shown them what they needed to see. Now it would help them understand what they needed to learn. As they began studying the new information, they realized that this discovery wasn't just about finding alien technology. It was about understanding why the builders had chosen Earth, why they had waited so long to reveal themselves, and why they had entrusted their legacy to a blind wolf who could see things no other creature could. The facility hummed with energy, its ancient systems fully awake for the first time in thousands of years. Above them, the crystal continued to pulse, sending its warning out to anyone who knew how to listen. The time had come for humanity to learn its true place in the universe, and to prepare for what was coming. The blind wolf, once rejected for its differences, had become the key to humanity's survival. Its journey was far from over, But it was no longer alone in its mission. Together with its new pack, it would help prepare Earth for the greatest challenge it had ever faced. 2 months had passed since the initial discovery. The research base had evolved into a global command center, with scientists and military personnel from around the world working together. The blind wolf had become a symbol of hope, its presence a reminder of the incredible journey that had led them to this moment. Lucy stood in the main control room, watching as teams coordinated the activation of the other facilities. Thanks to the knowledge they had gained from their site, they had located all 11 remaining stations. Each one held its own secrets, its own pieces of the builder's grand design. The Australian team just reported in, Kevin announced, studying a global map covered in glowing points of light. Their facility is online. That makes 9 out of 12 now active. The blind wolf sat beside Lucy, its clouded eyes reflecting the blue light of the holographic displays. Over the past weeks, they had learned more about its transformation. The builders hadn't just modified its eyes. They had enhanced its entire nervous system, turning it into a living interface between human and alien technology. Peter rushed into the room, his face excited. "The crystal matrix just revealed something new," he said, pulling up data on the main screen. "We finally understand why the builders chose Earth." The holographic display shifted, showing their solar system from a new perspective. Lines of energy crisscrossed through space, forming a complex web with Earth at its center. "Our planet sits at a crucial junction point of natural space-time corridors," Peter explained. "The threat we're facing, it uses these corridors to travel between galaxies. Earth is literally a cosmic crossroads." The wolf stood and walked to the center of the room. As it had done many times before, it activated the facility's deeper systems with its presence. New images appeared, showing the full scope of the builder's plan. "They didn't just leave us weapons," Lucy realized, watching the data unfold. "They left us a way to seal the corridors completely, to cut off the invasion before it begins." The displays showed a massive network of energy barriers designed to reshape the very fabric of space around Earth. Each facility was part of a larger whole, working together to create a shield that would protect not just their planet, but their entire sector of the galaxy. Teams around the world watched through their connected systems as the blind wolf demonstrated how the defense network would function. Its movements were precise, showing them exactly how to calibrate each station's systems. "Look at this," Kevin said, pointing to new data streaming in. "The builders didn't choose Earth randomly. They watched us, studied us. They knew that when the time came, we would be ready to understand their technology." The wolf moved to another console, activating a sequence that revealed the builder's final message. The crystal matrix hummed to life, projecting images of the ancient race that had created all of this. They were beautiful beings of light and energy, as different from humans as humans were from insects. They transcended physical form, Peter explained, reading the data. But they remembered what it was like to be young, to be learning. They saw that same potential in us. The message showed how the builders had faced the same threat long ago. They had fought it across thousands of galaxies, learning and growing stronger. But instead of continuing the fight themselves, they had chosen to pass their knowledge to younger races, helping them develop their own strength. Lucy watched as the wolf guided them through the final preparations. "They knew we would need help understanding their gift," she said softly. "That's why they chose you." She knelt beside the wolf, seeing the wisdom in its clouded eyes. The facility's systems began to pulse with new energy as more stations came online. The wolf moved between the consoles, showing them how to synchronize the network. Each facility had its own guardian now, local animals modified like the wolf, chosen for their unique abilities to interface with the alien technology. "The South African team reports their station is active," Kevin announced. "And the Brazilian facility just came online. That's 11 out of 12. Only the station in the Himalayas remained dormant." Teams were working their way through difficult terrain, guided by a modified snow leopard that had been waiting for them, just as the blind wolf had waited in Alaska. Peter's instruments detected a change in the energy patterns. "The threat is approaching faster than we expected," he said, studying the readings. "We have less than a month to activate the final station and complete the network." The wolf howled, and all the facility's systems responded in harmony. The sound carried through the connected stations, echoing around the world as each guardian added its voice. It was a song of preparation, of unity, of hope. Lucy looked at the global display, watching as lines of energy connected each facility. The builders knew we would face this together, she said. Not just as nations, but as a planet. That's why they left us guardians who understand pack behavior, who know the importance of working as one. The blind wolf, once rejected for being different, had brought humanity to this moment. Its disability had been a gift, allowing it to see what others could not. Through its guidance, Earth had discovered not just its place in the universe, but its role in protecting it. As the final preparations continued, Lucy sat with the wolf, watching the others work. "You're not just our guardian," she told it softly. "You're our teacher. You showed us that our differences make us stronger, that working together is the only way forward." The facility hummed with power, its ancient systems fully awake and ready. Above them, the crystal matrix pulsed with steady light, sending its signal to the stars. Earth was preparing for its greatest challenge, but it would not face it alone. The blind wolf stood at the center of it all, its mission nearly complete. It had led them to this discovery, taught them what they needed to know, and showed them how to use the builder's gift. Now, as humanity prepared to take its place among the stars, the wolf would continue to guide them, a bridge between Earth's past and its cosmic future. Together, they would face what was coming. Together, they would protect not just their world, but all worlds. And it had all begun with a blind wolf, rejected by its pack, that could see far more than any of them had imagined possible. The future was uncertain, but they were ready. Ready to stand together, ready to fight together, ready to protect everything the builders had entrusted to them. The blind wolf had shown them the way. Now it was time for humanity to take its next step into the universe.